Welcome back, Alpha 7 Tribe. I'm putting this up real quick. We're just going to go back into this book. Please feel free to go back to my playlist. I have many on the playlist, and there's going to be one with the word doublespeak. And since a lot of people now are getting really sharp when it comes to words and etymology, I definitely want to continue on with this book. So feel free to check out the playlist if you want to see this in sequential order. I find that, breaking it up on the channel makes the channel a little bit more interesting because some of these videos are shorter than others, right? And I want to try to sidestep the copyright. So I'm using this for fair use and education, although I love using movies and different sources and literature. Books are always the best, right? And this is definitely a throwback to PBS Reading Rainbow. I hate how that term now has been hijacked for the LGBT community. It's definitely it was originally meant for people who love to learn, and now we can't stop thinking about other things, right? So yes, this is still a nod to that amazing show that made an impression on me, and I always like to read, right? And so that's why it takes a lot for people to get by me, because when you have this knowledge, you're a little bit more sharp. And on my channel, we're going to go into different topics, and you're going to see where a lot of this stuff comes from and what is so great about this book. We left off, I think, on page 138. So we're going to start from here on these videos when I have time, kind of going through some issues at home as far as technical difficulties. So this is just going to be a short impromptu to get us back on track. And I like how it uses real life corporations and examples, right? So on this part, it says how to be less candid with doublespeak. And we do know in this realm, you got to watch what you say, right? And especially on YouTube and in the business world, they definitely know this well. So they watch what they say, and they use different words, right, to imply different meanings. So you can use one term in common parlance, and then when you use it in different industries, it can mean something totally different. So, this will definitely help you and help us to learn to be less candid ourselves, so we don't get all these copyright issues or shadow ban issues. So when a when a speculator in the stock market buys up a large block of company stock and threatens to take over the company, it is then bought off by the company's board of directors. The term used is greenmail, okay, which sounds nicer than economic blackmail. Corporate raiders are called takeover artists, while wheeler dealers have become deal makers. Remember that. Companies release surplus labor, who then become the disemployed, or involuntarily leisured. Some companies earn more money through aggressive cash management or crooked deals. You see that? Aggressive cash management. So doublespeak is the language of deceitful people. Look up the term 1984, the George Orwell writings and his movies and stuff, and it goes into the term of newspeak, right? Which they, they make awful things sound pleasant, right, by using certain words. And Carl Hahn, chairman of Volkswagen Corporation, did not admit in 1983 that the company's plant in Pennsylvania was running at a loss, but he did say that profits on imports partly compensate for the current burden on the manufacturing side. Volkswagen later closed the plant because it was losing too much money. In 1985, the First National Bank of Boston was charged. What were they charged with, guys? This was an interesting point, too. Was charged, right? Look at this. For a failure to report 1.2 billion and 1,163 cash transfers with foreign banks, transfers that were suspected of being used to launder money made through illegal transactions or activities. The bank pleaded guilty to a felony charge of knowingly and willfully failing to report the cash transfers and paid a $500,000 fine, but said that its failure was merely what? A systems failure. See how in a lot of these news stories, they make you think it's one thing, but there's so much. They just cover it, guys, with their terminology, okay? Or they call it an internal administrative glitch. You see that? Doesn't that give you confidence in the bank? After all, 1.22 billion, there's that 22. We've seen these numbers, repeating numbers. Billion is so easy to let slip through your fingers, and it's so true. You cannot really count on these banks and all that, because yeah, they can do whatever with the slip, with the sleight of hand. And that's why, a lot of people want to question certain things, especially with these banks and these deceptive business practices. And that's why I go into my channel, right, and go into different things and to help you cite different examples that have already happened and what violations that you can cite. Because a lot of times, guys, there's that 777 again, right? We see these numbers coming up so much, and we're going to go into different references on this channel. I know my hands are shaking way too much to be reading too much of this, right? I really wanted to read the next paragraph because, as you know, I go into consumer protection. We're going to read this real quick, and then you're going to see why it's important to know consumer credit laws. So the Crocker National Bank of San Francisco had a similar problem in 1985 when it agreed to pay a record $2.25 million penalty to the federal government for failing to report almost $4 billion in large cash transactions between 1980 and 1985. Harold P. Reichwald, Executive Vice President and General Counsel for Crocker, said it wasn't a fine, but a settlement, right? So when you hear the term settlement in a lot of these stories, I'm trying to censor my camera just a tad bit more. Sorry, guys. So John M. Walker, Chief Enforcement Officer for the Treasury Department, said that said that although there is no evidence that the bank itself deliberately engaged in money laundering, Crocker's reporting failures were systemic and pervasive. If the bank didn't engage in money laundering, who did? After all, the investigation revealed that Crocker had violated the Bank Secrecy Act 7,877 times. That's a lot of reporting failures. So you can see how other companies come up, which I love this book. We'll go into it more, guys. So we're going to leave off on page 139. I'm going to put my little marker here. I am so sorry. I know that you love like actual real life examples, but it's important to know this stuff too. And you can see how a lot of money is being funneled out, guys, for all these clandestine organizations, and why people like me get shadow banned. Meanwhile, they're doing all these budget cuts to these cities and people are going without, and people are getting really desperate out there. So it's important to see the deception in plain sight and educate people and empower people on the power of words, and so they can have the knowledge, right? And yeah, it's not so-called gay, right? Well, I guess it is to be reading, right? Because yes, I'm very content and happy, right? That's a whole other word with the double speak of that term, but I'm not going to let certain communities come thereafter and try to hijack certain symbols that were supposed to be right already for what you call conservative or traditional roles. So that's just the double speak of the generation that we're living in, right? Check out George Orwell's work, 1984, definitely. And we'll continue with this book. I haven't forgot this channel. Please subscribe if you haven't, because we're going to finish this whole series, and it's under my playlist under double speak. You'll see them all since the first video I did. And I like to go into other topics too to keep it interesting. Have a good day, guys. Thank you.